In this unit, we will explore how to create basic 3D illustrations in Adobe Illustrator using the extrude and bevel functions. Let me show you. Starting with this square here, we are going to try and transform it to a cube. In order to do so, we go to Effect and then 3D and Extrude and Bevel. By clicking on that, you can actually see that we have this extra panel that allows us to amend our 3D at the moment object and adjust it however we like. If you don't see live the amends that we did on the object, enable the preview option just right here at the bottom corner of this panel. From this diagram here, we can actually grab our object and rotate it however we actually want. You can also use these handles here on the side if you find them a bit more handy in order to rotate your object and reposition it. So I'm gonna go ahead and make it a bit more straight. You can also adjust the perspective using this little handle here, so it just changes a bit the perspective of the object. Usually set it up on 0, it works quite well. The extrude depth allows us to define the depth of the extrusion, the depth of our shape. The more that I increase that number, the depth of the shape becomes bigger and bigger. So I'm gonna make it around there, so it's around like a cube. Then I have the option for the cup, so if I want to leave it open or close the cup, so close the two sides of our object. And I have some further options about the bevel, so I can decide what kind of edge I'm gonna have. You see this one now, it's a bit different than the one before, or here you can see that the middle part is going farther up than the rest. Or this little wobbly one, and so on. You can actually define different styles for your 3D object sides. You can also adjust, for example, on this one, the height. So you can create a new shape just from a basic one. And you can adjust if it's gonna push the edges of the shape towards outside or the inside, and so on. Underneath that, we have the surface option, which is now set it up on the plastic shading. You can also go wireframe or no shading at all, which feels quite flat, diffuse shading, and so on. Plastic shading is usually quite interesting, it creates a bit of glossiness. If I click to more options, it allows me to work further on the different aspects of lighting of the object, such as the light intensity, the ambient light, highlight intensity, highlight size, and you can see the difference just by moving a bit the handles and adjusting the different parameters. I think it's usually working quite well when you leave it on the default, but it's always good to know that you have further options. Once you are happy with your adjustment, you press OK, and the transformation will be applied to your shape. As you will notice though, if I still click on the object, it remains a square. The rest is just editing that happens through the effects panel, and Illustrator recognizes it as an effect that you can't really edit like point by point or anything like that. Now if you want to edit further your 3D effect, if you go again to 3D and Extrude and Bevel, it's gonna ask you if you want to add another effect, which is probably not what you want to do, it's just that you want to further edit the one that you already have. So if you want to apply a new one, go ahead and press apply new effect, and it's gonna just lose what you already did. Else press cancel and go through window and then appearance panel and click on the 3D Extrude and Bevel. I know it feels quite weird because it's just a text, but there's actually a button, it's clickable, and you click there and you get back the panel which allows you to further amend your 3D object. Now another thing that you can do is use the map art option, which allows you to add some textures. But let's go ahead firstly and create some textures. I'm gonna just go here on the side where I created this 3 composition. And I was thinking to use each of them on a different side of the shape that we just created. In order to use them as textures on a 3D object, you have to turn them firstly to symbols. And we showed earlier in the course how you can actually open the symbols panel and just easily drag and drop your textures, and I'm gonna name it texture 1, texture 2, and texture 3 correspondingly. Having them as symbols, then I will be able to access them through the 3D panel in order to apply them on my graphic. So let's go back to our 3D object and go again through our appearance panel. Click on the 3D Extrude Bevel to go back to the options about our object and click Map Art. On this pop-up window here, you can actually add textures on the different sides of your object. So you select from the symbol drop down the texture that you want to use, so texture 1, and you see on the preview that it applied it to one of the sides. But as you see, the side that I applied it to is the one just behind there. What you see is this red box highlighting the area that applied it. So that's why I cannot really see that on the preview. Make sure though you have the preview enabled. Let's clear that side. From the surface here at the top, you have 1 of 6. So that means that the side that we are working at is number 1 out of the 6 sides. If we switch to number 2, we see that now it highlights the side that is at the front, so we can actually see that. And I'm gonna go ahead and add one of the graphics. What I can do is reposition my graphic here, my symbol, and adjust the way that the texture will look like. Or I can even like scale it or even rotate it if I want to. I can also click scale to fit, and it's gonna scale it so it perfectly fits the side. It's gonna stretch it or whatever it actually needs to happen in order to adjust it. You can also shade the artwork, so it's gonna have more shades as you can see, so it's gonna apply the same way that it goes on a normal solid color, so light and shadow will be applied to it. And you can make invisible the geometry, so we can only see the texture at the moment, not the geometry. I'm gonna leave that on and move to the next side, the third side, which is the side that you see here. And I'm gonna go ahead and add texture number 2, scale to fit, and add perhaps the shades. Not really sure about this texture, so I'm gonna clear it and try the other one to see if it's working better on that side there. Okay, so next side, number 4 is the bottom one. It's not the one that we want to adjust. Neither 5. So number 6 is our last side. And I'm gonna again scale to fit in order to perfectly fit it on that side. You can see the difference between shading and not shading the artwork. And press OK. Now you can further work on your lighting. You can better adjust it, and from this icon here I can move also where the light comes from. That feels already a bit more interesting, perhaps a bit more at the top as well, so it sees that side too. I think on this side was more interesting. Easily like that you can apply different textures on the different sides and create a nice 3D object out of simple geometry such as the square. I can still like rotate if I want my object, but yeah, perhaps you see in that side now that we didn't add the texture. And once I'm happy with the transformation, I just press OK to apply it and review my full shape. I'm not really happy though with these waves here, so I'm gonna go ahead and see what else exists here. So classic or complex, that's quite fun. Or perhaps just none, yeah. Let's leave it as a cube. So I'm gonna go ahead and fix again the textures since we lost the exact position by switching these parameters. So I'm gonna go ahead and scale all of them. So scale to fit. The lighting feels quite dark, so let's give it another try. And here we go, the little cube is done. If I want to further edit it now, as I said before, if I click on that, I just get the square. So you can again go Object Expand, Appearance this time, Expand is not available, and then Object Expand in order to turn your effect to vectors. And I can go ahead with my white arrow and adjust like little details that they didn't perfectly work, such as this edge here. That really bothers me. And it's quite important to always be detailed with your work. Make sure that all the edges and everything is nicely aligned. And what I'm gonna do also is manually adjust a bit those shades of color, which feel a bit dull at the moment. So let's go ahead and make this a bit brighter. This one too. So I'm in the same shade, I just move this indicator a bit farther on the brighter side. And yeah, let's do also this one a bit more vivid perhaps. Oh yeah, that feels nicer. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my eyedropper tool to grab that tone, make it slightly darker. That feels a bit more fresh already. Perhaps this a bit more pinkish. But since because of the light and shadow effect that we added, it made the colors a bit too dull for my preference. I kind of like the vivid, nice colors, the fresh colors, that they feel a bit more happy. But yeah, it's really personal, it's really up to you how you want to work and what color palettes you want to use. So as simple as that, you can create simple 3D objects, add your textures, and create engaging graphics for your clients or for your personal projects. Let's move on to another 3D effect. In the next unit, we are going to explore the revolve effect.